The BS Report is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects.
First of all,
this is the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
It might be cool, I don't know. And if it's not, I don't care.
The BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Bill Simmons works for ESPN. He's also named the Sports Guy, and he writes a comical sports column. He must be a popular dude.
The BS Report.
It's got a real dirty sound, like a rusty steak knife cutting through a well-aged steak.
Now.
Here's Bill Simmons.
Welcome to the BS Report. It's sunny Wednesday here in Southern California. On the Subway Fresh Take Hotline right now, the king of the ESPYs, the man who's made more Americans cry than anybody ever, Chris Connelly. What's happening?
I am well, Bill Simmons. How are you?
I'm ready to cry. You got My Wish starting in a couple weeks. I'm ready. The tears are already welling in my eyeballs.
We have some very nice young people to introduce you to. We've been crisscrossing the country and talking to some great kids, and I can't wait for the rest of America to get to meet them. And they've had great times on their wishes, so it's all good.
Did any of the NBA owners try to weasel their way onto the show as like a My Wish to gain them more revenue or anything? No?
The NBA owners are too busy poring over the Nate Silver blog posts and the Forbes magazine things to be concerned into my little world. Everybody is counting every little dime and calling all those NHL owners saying, hey, how'd you do that?
Yeah.
Hey, that part was awesome. The whole part where you didn't play, that was awesome.
It's certainly how I wanted to spend my summer, with people arguing about what loss numbers were legitimate or not. Hard to believe. Let's talk about. I wrote about movie stars last week, and one of the reasons, other than the fact that we hadn't talked to you in a while, was I wanted to get your take on the whole thing. The premise was that, well, there's a couple different premises with it. One of them was that the concept of a movie star, we don't really have the right concept in our heads, because a movie star is like an NBA All-Star. It can shift. It can change. Somebody was a star 3 years ago, and that can change. We don't even realize it. First of all, do you agree with that?
Not necessarily. I mean, you make a case to say, for example, that Jim Carrey is not a star anymore, and you blame yourself for not knowing that Jim Carrey wasn't a star because you look at his last fistful of movies and you go, oh, I didn't realize he wasn't a star anymore. You know, if you don't realize that, then it's not necessarily true, you know. If Jim Carrey wants to do a comedy right now in Hollywood, somebody's going to pick up the phone and talk to him, you know. Like in sports, stars in Hollywood, in my view, exert their will, right? They exert their will on a movie. They exert their will on the town. They exert their will in terms of the projects that they make, the projects that they keep from getting made because they don't say yes, the projects that they produce or direct. They exert their will, and that's what we think of as a star in sports and in Hollywood. The difference, I guess, between Hollywood and show business is if a star doesn't succeed in a project, it's not necessarily his fault. Like in most cases, it's not his fault. It's the director's fault, in the view of the town. If you're a director and you're lucky enough to get an A-list performer to be in your movie and it doesn't perform, it's not the fault of the guy who had a bunch of hits before you worked with him. Chances are the studio, the town, will say, well, you messed it up. Because he already had a track record. So, you know, it's the Paul Westhead corollary.
What's that?
Well, you know, the classic example. He had stars. They didn't perform. It was his fault. You know, sports traditionally, like from the French World Cup team onward, says, it's the job of the stars to get along with the coach and the coach to set the direction. And, of course, in Hollywood, we would understand if you have stars and they're not making a hit, that's your fault. We already know these guys are stars. So,
But would you agree that Jim Carrey's career he can no longer just release any movie and people are going to go see it?
Well,
that day is over.
I guess the question is, what can he get made, you know? If he has a project he wants to make for the right money, can he still get it made? Can he make a $150 million movie just on his name? I would imagine not. But he remains a brand name, you know. They don't make Mr. Popper's Penguins if it's, the third guy from How I Met Your Mother starring in it, you know. So he retains some sway. Certainly, I guess, in the cold, hard Where you look at these things, you check out the box office, and you go, okay, for whatever reason, people aren't going to see his movies like they used to. Is it the problem of the movie, or is he adapted well? Does he need to start playing different characters? Those are all issues. But you still hear his name, and you go, okay, force to be reckoned with. Then we have your whole superhero corollary there, Bill.
Yep.
And you ask, things like, you're saying things like Ryan Reynolds isn't a star, and Chris Evans isn't a star, the guy in Captain America and stuff. And I guess the point would be, well, sure. That's why they're playing these roles. That's what Tobey Maguire showed us.
Yeah, but wouldn't you say that most people would think Tobey Maguire is a movie star?
Why? If he's not wearing the suit, who buys a ticket? That would be the issue anyway. And in what way does he enforce his will on the town if he's not Spider-Man? That's not a knock on him. That's just like, how does the structure work? You wouldn't think of him necessarily in the same sentence as George Clooney or Brad Pitt or an Adam Sandler or Will Smith or somebody like that. Right. In the old days, and when I say the old days, if I followed this more closely, you had to have we talked about a guy who could carry the gun. Like in the 90s and the 80s. You had Stallone and you had Schwarzenegger and you had guys like that. And the question about the up-and-comers was, can they carry the gun? Which was, could they play a real person who was tough enough to carry a gun in a movie, therefore be in an action movie, therefore make action movie-type money? You knew that Schwarzenegger and Stallone and guys like that could do it. So the question was, could Johnny Depp be the guy who carried the gun? Could Nick Cage wind up being the guy carrying the gun? Because that would lift you to a new plateau in terms of how much money you could make and what your stature in the town was. But now you don't have to carry a gun. Now they'll put you in tights. Now the character already carries the gun. You're just wearing the tights.
Good example of this, Shia LaBeouf, although he has not played a superhero to my knowledge, but he was the Transformers franchise. He was in, what was the other one he was in that was a franchisey type of movie?
He was in Indy 4. He was in Indiana Jones and what was it, the Crystal Skull?
Yeah, which was awful. But he was in Disturbia, which actually made money.
Right.
So you could make that, because I got a lot of emails about the column last week, and a frequent refrain was that Shia LaBeouf is a movie star. And my thinking was, it was the Tobey Maguire thinking of, he's not a movie star, he's just in those Transformer movies, and he picked the right roles, but I'm not sure if for instance, if you flipped him with Justin Long in that Drew Barrymore movie, where they dated long distance,
right?
I don't think that has any impact on what the movie made or how many people see it.
Justin Long is pretty adorable.
I actually like Justin Long.
And remember, he was Alvin in Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Right.
You can't take Alvin away from him because that first Alvin movie, forget about it.
I got to say, that wasn't a bad movie. I actually, for coming on HBO one night kind of a movie, not bad. It was fairly entertaining.
The one where the Chipmunks all sing, you had a bad day, that's pretty great.
I was talking about the Drew Barrymore movie.
Oh, okay. The Drew Barrymore movie, I think people thought, yes, was a good rom-com. I think, they had real chemistry. And she is unstoppable in those things,
She's going to be, I said Sandra Bullock was the Nolan Ryan of rom-coms. I think Drew Barrymore, by the time it's said and done, will have shattered all of her records.
Well, she's more the Cy Young of rom-coms.
511 wins.
She just keeps winning, She keeps winning.
But look
at the flashy numbers, no doubt about that. And she's money in the bank in a different way, yeah.
So with Shia, we don't know if he's a movie star because he's never had that one movie that tells us without any of these other things that go like Transformers. We don't know if that's a Shia.
Yeah, but it'd be fun to place the bet because he's an interesting guy. When he goes out and does press, he says interesting things.
Gets himself in trouble.
He gets in trouble a little bit. He lives kind of interesting life. He admits to romances and stuff. I mean, we need more of this in Hollywood. We need more guys who can stir the pot. And I think that's great. I think he kind of enhances his opportunity to get a shot to do something like that, just because there's there are things that are interesting about him, you know, and he'll say interesting things while he's doing stuff. So, you know, I think he'll get the chance to show us one way or another. How about that?
All right. What about Zach Galifianakis? Because I said he's a movie star because the 2 Hangover movies made a ton of money. You could argue that that was basically a superhero franchise, and that he can't. You know, it's like at some point it doesn't really matter who's in the movie because everybody liked the first one. I think that he was really, you know, directly responsible for a lot of this.
Aren't you married to Mrs. Galifianakis right now?
she does love him. But I think he's a star.
Is it hard
now.
when the mail comes and it says that? You know, do the direct mail get the spelling right most of the time?
Yeah, she does. I do take that a little personally.
I understand.
But you know, I feel like he's a real star now. Like if his next movie that comes out, I think it'll do well regardless of whether it's good or not.
I remember we were talking one time about like the comedy guy of the year once, remember? And
yeah.
You had a great set of criteria for what the comedy guy of the year was. You know, the person who everybody talked about, but also the person who just crushed every appearance on a TV show, right? They came on a talk show and they killed. They did their SNL hosting gig and they killed, you know. And Galifianakis has got to be right up there for that. I mean, I can't think of the last time I saw a guy just crush his opening monologue on SNL like Galifianakis did, you know.
Yeah.
I wasn't as up on him as you were, but I saw that. That was nobody hits it out of the park like that, it seems, on that opening monologue anymore, and he was tremendous. So, yeah, you wouldn't mind betting on him.
And Kevin James, people got mad that I said he was a movie star. I think the Zookeeper is going to make like $500 million, and I can't think of really anybody else who could have been in that role other than maybe Galifianakis.
Well, the thing about comedy is that the reach for credit for comedy gets everybody going. Is it the director? Is it the writer? Is it the concept? Is it the fact it's a sequel? Is it all those things?
Yeah.
And sometimes people get credit in ways that perhaps they don't deserve. So whatever you can say that James is running a very kind of successful, like Sandler patterned career, kind of, I guess you'd say, doing the blue collar thing. So in terms of sort of like you said with Will Smith, identifying the concepts, the high concepts, and hitting them, he's teed up really well for Zookeeper. Yes.
Yeah, the argument against Kevin James would be that Zookeeper is basically like the comedy version of a superhero franchise. It is what it is, and you could have thrown anybody in there. Maybe people.
But
I don't necessarily agree with that.
If you become identified with a certain idea, like the mall cop, if you become identified with the McJobs comedy guy, it's a good business. Yeah, maybe 10 other people could be funny doing that. Who knows? But we know him. We like him. People thought he was funny the last time out, and this one feels very family friendly, and that counts for something too in the thicket of the R-rated comedies. It's really nice to feel like I could take my teenager to this. It'll be okay. So.
Listen, my daughter was laughing all the way through the preview, and I was like, "Oh my God!"
Remember there's been bait and switch on talking animal movies in the past. Do you remember there was that Cuba Gooding Jr. where the animals only talked in the trailer, or was that Kangaroo Jack? Where, a couple of times there have been movies where animals only talk in the trailer and then don't talk in the movie. That's a problem.
We have animal talking movies, you have baby talking movies, and then you have body switch movies.
Oh, boy.
Those seem to be the 3 genres that just keep coming back. We can't get away from them.
Well, people want to do them. Actors like doing them, I guess, They'll never replace Freaky Friday, let's put it that way.
I think the only body switch movie that actually, Freaky Friday worked, and then, Big really worked, but he didn't switch bodies. He became a kitty.
He just got big.
But other than that, they don't really work. But that brings me to a segue of Tom
Really, you don't
Hanks.
like the Charlie Slaughter, George Burns movie? Isn't on, fast rotation at your house? Wow.
Not on that one. Neither is the Zac Efron version of that. So Tom Hanks.
Yes.
He comes out with Larry Crown.
Right.
He's with Julia Roberts.
Yes.
These are 2 of the biggest stars in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
And yet the movie doesn't do well, and nobody seems that interested in really going out of their way to see it. What does that mean?
he may, again, it's like, what does a star do? A star makes the movie he wants to make. A star makes, everything about that movie says this is the movie Tom Hanks wanted to make, and there was Julia Roberts on board to make it too. So when you think of what a star is, a star won't always have the biggest box office hits. A star will do what the star wants to do. Sometimes the star will direct, sometimes the star will write, sometimes, but it's how they manipulate the business success that they have to make the movies they want to make that make them interesting. Like, for example, 15, 20 years ago, you're talking about people like Mel Gibson, Kevin Costner, Jodie Foster. They used their box office success to put themselves in the position to make movies that they wanted to make. Some of them were hits, some of them weren't. But everybody knew that in the right thing, they were always, gonna give you dollar value, so you get to do one. Here's Brad Pitt about to be Billy Bean. Is this going to be a big hit? Is this going to play overseas in France? If it doesn't, does it mean he's not a star? No. He got it made. He stuck around went through the change of directors and the studio didn't make it. There he is. He's in there. Clooney does it all the time. Matt Damon does it. Sandler is constantly making movies that he wants to make. I think that's what a star is. And Will Smith is an interesting corollary in all this. Will Smith is very much, from the outside making that Tom Cruise type career, right?
Yeah.
The big project. But look at those last two movies. See, the theory of Premiere when I worked there, one of the ideas about Premiere Magazine when I started to work there that was explained to me was, because these guys, these big stars, have the option of doing any movie they want, the movies they do choose to make tell you a lot about them, right?
Yeah.
They can only say yes 2 or 3 times, in an 18-month period. So when they say yes, you learn something about them. In some cases, you might even learn more about them than who they're dating or who they're going out with or something. So Will Smith becomes this huge Hollywood star, right? And now we think he just makes these big blockbusters over and over again because he made a lot of them, and they've all been really successful, like you say. Look at those last 2 movies. Did you see Hancock?
Yeah, it was a little risky, I guess.
Hancock, if you saw the trailer for Hancock is about, and we are entering the spoiler zone in case somebody classifies conversations about movies that came out 6 years ago as spoilers.
No, we're not spoiling it.
All right. Hancock, if you saw the trailer, was a movie about a homeless guy who was a superhero, right?
Yeah.
And then halfway through, it takes a 90-degree turn and becomes something else, right? Because it turns out that Charlize Theron is also a superhero. So
right.
It struck me as one of the strangest things I'd seen in a movie. Maybe that's not an unusual movie for a guy who winds up marrying a force of nature like Jada Pinkett, Maybe this is a kind of metaphor for what he feels like his life has been since marrying somebody so dynamic and somebody finally finding someone on his level. You could think you're Will Smith and you could think, boy, there's nobody in the world who understands what it's like to be me because I've had this very unusual life. And then you meet somebody, you feel like you're hard to explain who you are, and then you meet someone who entirely knows who you are. And you look at that movie and think how about that 7 Pounds movie? Did you see that 7 Pounds movie?
Yeah, it wasn't, it was a little tough.
It's really strange. I mean, it was a really weird movie for a guy to make, especially a guy like Will Smith. It was like one big expiation of guilt, didn't you think?
Yeah, but it was, if you just look at those last 2 choices, one is a superhero movie and the other one's a super sappy movie. Right?
But you feel like they're about some sort of emotions, right? You feel like one is about, I finally found someone who's lived, what an amazing thing to find someone who's lived as extraordinary life as I have. What is it like to find somebody like that? And now that other one is, wow, I've become so successful. So many things have happened my way, and we hear this from famous people all the time. I don't know that we ever heard it from Will Smith going, wow, it makes me feel guilty, all the success I've had. This makes me feel strange, and everybody sees me as a big success, and I can't stop thinking about this other stuff. And then there's a third thing that Will Smith has done that also makes him interesting recently, and that is that his son is now becoming a star.
Yes, and is a good actor.
Right. But let's face it, we've had a 15-year social experiment, in the effect of stardom on really young people.
Yeah, and it's not. I'd say
it's not going well.
30-year. Yeah, it's a 30-year experiment. It's gone terribly.
It's not going well. So you're flying in the face of a lot of data when you decide that it would be cool if you want your child when you're already a huge success and your kids will have a wonderful life.
I would give him a pass on the son because the son is a good actor if it was just the son, but the fact that he's trying to shoehorn the daughter into it, the pop culture career and the pop song career and the wacky hairdos. Ooh, she's got a new hairdo. Kids
the daughter did provide us with the image of Bruce Springsteen singing "Whip My Hair" on Jimmy Fallon. So we get the pass for that. I'm not saying it's a bad idea.
Well, it's not a great idea.
I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I'm just saying it's an idea not without risk. It's
not a good idea.
Bill Murray, I don't know necessarily that Bill Murray is your source authority for all things Hollywood, but Bill Murray once said, if you want to be rich and famous, try being rich first. But maybe being famous and successful is also a drive. So even for people who've known that other kind of success. So we'll see what happens.
So you don't think 7 Pounds was really a movie about that you shouldn't text when you drive? Sounds like that's its legacy. Anybody who texts when they drive now, they think of Will Smith. That's
of all the films about texting, we are going to see so many texting and driving films.
Yeah.
Before it's all over. I just saw a PSA about texting and driving.
Yeah, I know I'd do it.
It's the new, I was on a beach this weekend and I saw lifeguards texting.
Oh, that's scary.
Yeah, I know.
I don't like that idea.
I thought so too.
Wait, let's go back to your metaphor thing because I like this. Because all right, so look at Cruise. Tom Cruise rolls off one of the best 15-year runs anyone's ever had, culminating in Jerry Maguire in 1996.
Oh yeah.
Which, as you pointed out on a previous podcast, was not only a really good movie, but a really good choice for Cruise at that specific point in his career because he needed to make a movie where he was Tom Cruise.
Right.
And he got to do Tom Cruise things, which I think is something that a lot of actors and actresses forget sometimes. Like, yeah, okay, play a vampire, do this, be this old guy, but every once in a while you got to come back and just be Tom Cruise again, which he did in Jerry Maguire.
Yeah.
So, peak of his powers now. He's married to Nicole Kidman. Things are going great. He's the #1 star. And now he goes and makes Eyes Wide Shut and Magnolia.
Right.
So what were the two metaphors there?
Well, Eyes Wide Shut was the culmination of an idea about his career, I think, which was work with the best people, work with the best directors you can find. That leap from Top Gun looks like what? Barry Levinson, and Sidney Pollack.
Paul Newman.
He just knocks out A-list directors, Scorsese. He knocks out A-list directors, and that was, I have to assume, that was exactly the idea. Work with.
Well, and he wanted to work with a couple of big stars too. Like he wanted to bang out his Paul Newman movie, and et cetera, et cetera.
Right. So again, typically that's a great idea for a young actor. Just find the best people and work with them. And working with Kubrick was the ultimate. The idea that you could work with Kubrick, that was the top of the ladder. It became like this, that they were trapped. The movie never ended. They never left. They were just stuck making that movie perpetually. He was never going to let them go. He was never going to be finished. He tells a story once about the late Sidney Pollack coming up to shoot his scene. He's got one scene, and he says, Sidney Pollack comes on the set, and he said, I thought I'd wear this suit for this scene. He said, the rest of us are all in sweats. We know that nothing is going to get shot today or this week in this scene. Sidney showed up and thought he had one day to shoot a scene. He was there for 3 weeks.
Maybe on his IMDb thing that for Cruise, that's almost like he blew out his ACL that year as an athlete. He lost a whole season to stay in the Kubrick.
We're going to do it one more time.
But the underlying metaphor of that movie was that was kind of like a creepy, weird marriage sex drama, and it seems like there had to have been at least some semblance of a reason why he chose to do that with his wife, right?
I think they just thought it would be like the ultimate acting experience, the chance to work with the most reclusive, the most talked about. I mean, looky here. Here's right now. Here's Brad Pitt in a Terrence Malick movie, and it's not a dissimilar idea. And I think that Terrence Malick movie is really good, and I think Brad's really good in it. I
haven't gone over to the artsy fartsy theater in Santa Monica to see it yet. That's what I call that theater. Artsy fartsy cinemas.
They have yes, the catering is all by Nobu when you go to them.
Yeah. They have two of them. There's one there and there's one on Sunset. That's the other artsy fartsy.
It's good because it's the only movie there that doesn't have a title that ends in ESSE.
So then the other one he did,
that kind of thing.
He did Magnolia, which was like really like coming to grips with like his relationship with his dad. It seemed like.
I know, that was amazingly. I mean, and that was the thing that at the time, you remember, you never thought he would have the stones to do. And not only did he do it, but he kind of blew you out of the water doing it. He was great. It was really something. So
now, does it because it made me mad, and that's what I based my whole column around. Kind of makes me mad that Will Smith has never gone to one of those places, just as somebody who likes movies and likes good acting.
Well, I guess my answer to that is he's gone there a little more than maybe we realize. You know, a lot of times he's gone. If you take this, you know, nutty little way of looking at Hancock and 7 Pounds through a slightly different lens, you could argue he's starting to go there. But yeah, some guys never go there. Like Eddie Murphy, for example, in the 80s, you know, he had the biggest hits in the world. You put him in you talk about the size of a star. If he was in a movie, it was going to be gigantic. If Eddie Murphy had wanted to make an $80 million movie about the creation of a fluffernutter, he could have gotten it greenlit. At that moment, you want to make the fluffernutter movie, you go right ahead, Eddie. He wanted to make he wanted to do a Lanford Wilson play, he wanted to do Fences, the major release, he could have done it. He wanted to do the Jackie Robinson story, he could have done it. Any book, anything you want, he could have gotten it made. He chose not to. His mind just didn't work that way.
Well, you know what he did?
He made movies go ahead.
He made Harlem Nights. That turned out to be his big risk. One of the worst movies ever made.
He wanted to work with Pryor.
Yeah, and Red Fox. And what we found he really loved, he found on Coming to America, right? The one thing that Eddie Murphy loved about the movies more than anything else was what? Prosthetic makeup. Yeah.
When he discovered that he could play multiple roles in the same scene with prosthetic makeup, that was it for him. That was the thing he wanted to do more than anything else.
Do you think?
And that's what he did.
Would you argue that comic actor, or would you argue against the premise that comic actors have something of a shelf life? You might have 8 years and that's it. And then after that, people are kind of like, I get that guy. He's made me laugh, and I'm not really going anywhere new with him. I've been to all the places he can take me.
Well, what's the count on Sandler now?
I would argue Sandler. Well, I guess it depends on how you want to classify Sandler's career, because
Sandler's making hits, and Sandler's going to make exactly the movies he wants to make. Right. Don't you feel? So
he's making movies that appeal to kids, and maybe appeal's the wrong word, but you can take your kids to the movie, and that seems like what he wants.
But I mean, how many years back is that now? We'd have to look at the Wayback Machine.
Yeah, it's going like 7 or 8.
That's more than a decade, though, right? You're looking well into the 90s on those classic movies.
Well, because you look at like Will Ferrell, who had a really, really good like 7-8 year run, and now I feel like I'm not sure where he goes now. You know.
Well, again, he hasn't stopped. Will Ferrell didn't stop being funny.
No, I know. Right? I agree with you. I think he still is funny.
Well, what do we have to do to make him? What little adjustments have to be made to ensure that he's funny next time out?
But wouldn't you say that comedy evolves and changes, and new guys become funny, and it's like, oh, Zach Galifianakis, I haven't really experienced him yet. He's funny.
Yeah,
But-
and I think every new kind of mini generation wants their guy.
Yep.
I don't think Sandler. If you're a 17-year-old, he's not your guy. He's maybe really funny. You enjoy his movies, but he's not your guy. Galifianakis, maybe he's your guy now.
Yeah.
If you're a teenager, he's my guy. My guy was Woody Allen, right? So it just changes. It's going to keep going.
I'm glad you brought him up. Where do you stand on Woody? Like his last movie that came out got pretty good reviews. My friend Kornheiser hated it, and kind of wishes that Woody didn't make movies anymore. I don't. Are you glad that he's still like pumping these out once a year, basically?
I would like. I'm glad he's still making movies, but I would like to feel like somebody was having a good experience out of it all. I never feel like he's enjoying making them. I think the last one I haven't seen the most recent one with Owen Wilson, but my wife saw it. My wife liked it. You would just like the sense that he marshaled resources on a movie at some point. I think the older these guys get sometimes, the less they involve themselves with things on movies than they used to. Like, did you see Gran Torino?
Yeah.
Their guy's not even in focus in Gran Torino. There are shots that aren't even in focus in Gran Torino. There are supporting performances that you can't quite believe in Gran Torino. But I just feel like if you're Clint Eastwood, you just say, I'm not going to get bogged down in this little stuff. I have a limited amount of time to make these movies. By gosh, I'm going to make them. I'm going to make sure my stuff works. And then the rest of it's not going to matter that much because I'm going to be solid in it. And I sometimes wonder if Woody is doing the same thing. The writing's going to be there. If I don't like the way a particular scene goes, I don't have time to make sure that works. I'm just going to keep going. So you can't really fault these guys knowing what they're up against in terms of money and in terms of the great karmic wheel to keep being productive. But sure, we would all like the idea of Woody really caring about the casting, really caring about the scenes, really caring about all that stuff instead of kind of waving it through based on the thing he's written. So
that's interesting. You compared him to Eastwood because Eastwood's just legendary for one take. Let's move on.
Yeah.
And then Tommy Lee Jones is the guy who's legendary for, they call him One Take Tommy. He does his take and he's done. I always wanted, I don't know if they've ever been in a movie together, but that would be fascinating. Maybe the movie would have no takes.
Weren't they in that Secret Service movie together?
Maybe they were. I have to rewatch that now.
Together?
Probably see the boom mic hanging over in half the scenes.
No, the only line is he shoots the rehearsal.
Let's move on. There's no time.
Gotta go.
The Woody Allen, the one that he did with Larry David, Woody Allen will make these movies, and they just come and go, and nobody thinks of them again. Like that Larry David movie, that was supposed to be like a big Larry David movie. We actually saw that open Tribeca, I think.
Yeah, I went to it.
Yeah,
I kind of like that movie.
Kind of liked it too, and it just went away.
I was surprised that people, I know why people don't like it. Okay, I know why people don't like it, and it's because of the Evan Rachel Wood romance.
She was terrible. And
here's another example. Well, for one thing, obviously the ancient guy and the young beautiful girl, it just drives people around the bend every now and then. It's too much. It bugs people. And obviously, again, this is what we talked about. The movie does not work very hard to make their relationship plausible. He's not interested in the plausibility of their relationship. As a writer, as a movie maker, he's interested in what happens if these two guys are together. There are movies, as you know, Bill, where like months and months are spent on how will they meet and why will we find it convincing and what special thing will take place so that we inherently believe in this relationship. And many notes are exchanged and writers are brought in. And guys like Eastwood and Woody Allen, they don't care. That's not what I care about. I just want to see what happens to this character when he's dating this very young woman.
I saw a screening of Jason Reitman's movie that doesn't come out until December with Charlize Theron.
Oh.
Young adult. Written by Diablo Cody.
You probably can't say, but you probably can't discuss it in detail, but what did you think?
I thought it was tremendous, and here's what I really liked about it, other than the fact that it was just well done. Remember we said earlier about Tom Cruise being Tom Cruise, like he needed that Jerry Maguire movie. He needed a movie like that where you just like you watch for 2 hours and you're like, this is Tom Cruise just throwing 98 miles an hour.
That's absolutely right. Yeah.
I don't think Charlize Theron ever had a movie like that. You could say it's Monster, but there's a movie where she gained like 35 pounds and made herself ugly. Like that shouldn't be her defining movie. She's beautiful. Everybody who sees her talks about how breathtaking she is. She's never really been in a movie that was a really good movie that she was really good in, that she was also beautiful, and you just like you stared at her for 2 hours and you couldn't wait to see what the next scene was.
You're not going to count the fight from 2 Days in the Valley, I guess.
No, I'm not counting that. I mean, and it made me like reevaluate her whole career and wonder what happened, because that's how good I thought she was in it. And maybe I was off, and it was one of those things.
I think she's done it her way. I mean, I saw North Country. I think that's what it was called. North Country. Yeah. She's really good in North Country. North Country was a really good movie, but because it was grim and serious and set in the Iron Range up in Minnesota, people didn't see it, I guess. And you're right, she's not the luminous beauty there. I even saw the extended cut of That Thing You Do, which contains a lot more of Charlize Theron making out with Tom Everett Scott than you saw in the original cut of Tom Hanks' movie. Yes. Yes. I loved that movie, so I'm in the tank on that. But the 2 hour 30-minute version, a lot more Charlize Theron. But you're right.
I'm amazed that there's deleted scenes in that movie. That movie was already pretty long.
There was a whole backstory with Charlize and going out with the dentist and all the rest of it. That if you want to see Charlize making out with a very happy Tom Everett Scott, there's your movie. But you're right. She's an unusual figure, you know. She's not American. She's not British. She's not Australian. She's South African. And she really marches to her own drummer. So you know that she knows that you know that she's beautiful. Yeah. Like, uncommonly beautiful. And she just has a different relationship to it. She seems to lack a certain level of vanity by the standards of what Hollywood, you know, does.
And that's what I liked about this movie is it was the movie that captured what you just said. She knows that you know that she knows she's beautiful.
Right.
And that was like the, basically what I'm looking up her IMDb as we speak. But here's the thing. At the very least, she could have had Angelina Jolie's career. Like, she could have made awesome action movies and just looked hot in them and worn, like, leather jumpsuits and fought people. That could have been her career.
She certainly could have kicked booty and not just shaken it. But it doesn't ever look like she. I'd have to look at this to be sure, but she never made a movie when she was just when she got to any kind of success. She never made kind of a movie where she was arm candy that way.
The Road, Burning Plane, Hancock, Sleepwalking, Battle in Seattle, In the Valley of Elah. Aeon Flux. I guess that was her attempt to do that, and it just didn't work.
Right.
North County, Head in the Clouds, Life or Death of Peter Sellers, Monster.
Yeah, unusual stuff, certainly.
Yeah, no romantic comedies in there.
Nobody, yeah. The agent who's saying, well, look, Aniston turned this down. You're going to be locked in a trunk, and Gerard Butler's going to, lose my number, right?
Yeah.
I can't even hear you talking right now. So
I'm glad she made this movie because I think people will feel differently about her after they see it. And
well, that was the funny thing about seeing her in Hancock. When you saw her as like the housewife in Hancock, you thought, wow, overcasting. Yeah. Wow, how about that? And then the second half of the movie is like, oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah, I got it. Aniston.
Yes.
My wife gets very upset about this because, all women have to defend Aniston at all costs, at all times.
Really?
Yeah, they're all on Team Aniston.
Are they?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
You don't think so?
Yeah, I've run into a fair number of Team Angelina people over the years. I'll say that.
Wow, really?
Oh yeah.
Team Angelina. I didn't even know Team Angelina had uniforms.
It's not a whole lot. It's mostly what was worn during some of the later stages of the movie Gia, but you get the idea.
So Gia game warrants from 1999. Aniston stole somebody.
I need you now. Favorite line from Gia.
Aniston stole somebody else's live-in boyfriend. It's documented.
That's what I read in the papers, Bill.
Guy lived with his girlfriend.
I was previously not familiar with the living arrangements of Mr. Justin. How does he pronounce his last name?
With Justin somebody. Whatever the case.
I was not familiar with what the situation was, so I'm going on not always reliable word, but I do know that that's the trope that's out there right now. Yeah.
Lived with his girlfriend, longtime girlfriend. Met Aniston, dumped the girlfriend, started dating Aniston.
So they say.
Seems very similar to the Aniston-Jolie Pitt love triangle that threatened to submarine the nation. I'm just saying. I think
we're seeing something interesting. I do think we're seeing a reboot of the Aniston franchise.
Oh, I think you like this. So she went Jolie, and you think this rejuvenated her?
I wasn't even talking about her personal life. I was talking about her professional life. I think we've seen, we certainly have seen kind of a knitting together of her film roles and the supposed storyline that so many people have when they think about her. The idea that she was married to Brad and that she lost Brad, and so this kind of pervasive sadness has attached itself to her for a long period of time. Whether or not that's true, that is the storyline that has been playing longer than Mamma Mia. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's like storylines for celebrities change every 5 minutes. This one is the freaking Fantastics. This one is the Mousetrap in London. This one has gone on forever. Presidents have changed. Popes have changed. Everything, everything. Everybody has gotten a new husband or wife, and we have still had people like your excellent spouse representing for Team Aniston because of this thing in the past, allegedly. And now, finally, we are days away, I think, from seeing the official professional reboot of the Aniston franchise.
With horrible bosses.
Right, when she plays this, I haven't seen the movie, but as you know, there's already been a red banded trailer where she plays this super hot, super sexually harassing, filthy-mouthed woman, who dentist, I think, who goes after her, her number two. And why not? Why should Jennifer Aniston just be the sad face in a rom-com? Why should she just be burying Marley outside the Philadelphia Inquirer columnist's estate in Pennsylvania? Oh, where are the horses? Where are the horses? You're a columnist for the Inquirer. I kept thinking, is this the way Stephen A. used to live?
Yeah. Pretty far out of the city.
Where are the horses? I think... And why not? She's great looking. She's ready to have a good time.
So you're predicting?
I'm predicting a little revivification. I'm predicting no more sad-eyed lady of the lowlands. I'm looking forward to the new the new hot Aniston, getting back the old hot Aniston, like the old days. So
you think she remakes Basic Instinct next? Like is that where you're going with this?
I don't think
she's got an ice pick ready.
I just think she's going to show that she's comfortable in the new world here. I think we're going to enjoy the new identity, and it looks like, if the stories are true, she's enjoying her new identity as well.
Is she too old to play Casey Anthony?
That's not getting off a cable. You know what I mean? That's not.
You think that's lifetime? That's lifetime only?
My favorite game playing with my kids now is to go. If you take the guide right on DirecTV, you take the guide on DirecTV, and you just scroll through like 2 weeks of Lifetime movies, and you just say the title and ask your kids to come up with the plot.
Oh, that sounds fun. I'm going to do that.
It's a lot of fun. You can play with anybody, but
that's.
Let her go. The Judas Friedrich story.
Right.
Well, okay. It's a woman who leaves an abusive no, not an abusive husband. No, it's an adoptee looking for her old parent. Okay.
That's great. My wife, you can put on the Lifetime channel at any point of the night if she's doing something else, and within 3 minutes she'll get sucked in.
I'm
it's
just
like a vortex.
Yeah, right. It's one thing if there are 3-word titles. her last wish. Okay, that's one thing. And then your kids all guess what her last wish is. But I'm just going to tell you, if there's a colon and a full name in the title, you've got to get out of there. You've got to, like, send in the SWAT team. They have to be stopped right now because things are going to get really bad.
The Amanda Knox story.
Right, sure.
That was consumed voraciously in my house.
Well, yeah, and we'll see
Not by me.
We'll see lots of iterations of Amanda Knox, and we will see a lot of iterations of the Anthony story, too.
Well, the Casey Anthony thing...
Nancy Grace refers to her tot mom.
Right.
I was on Good Morning America. I was preparing to go on Good Morning America, and the sequence before me was Nancy Grace and Dan Abrams discussing, the case, the Anthony trial, and for a while I thought she was speaking a language I didn't understand. She just kept referring to the defendant as tot mom, and I thought, is this like a nickname? Is this like, are nicknames back after all? After all those stories about how athletes don't have nicknames, or nicknames back? Tot mom. So
I can't believe that women haven't hated anyone this much ever. Like, just the women that I know, they were like just fixated on this trial with like a level of intensity that I haven't seen. And I was thinking, and I actually Googled to see if she was going to play Casey Anthony. Jennifer Love Hewitt, who all women instinctively hate. I've written about this before.
Yes, you
have. I feel like if she plays Casey Anthony in the Lifetime movie, I don't know what's going to happen to my wife. Like, I feel like she might flip over the TV or something.
Well, I still, this was the kind of role that in the old days would have landed right on the desk of Valerie Bertinelli, and she would have been great. So
it's a great call.
Whoever can fill those shoes, I wish them all the luck in the world. But
in the 90s, I think Tiffany Amber Thiessen nails it.
Sure. Nowadays,
I don't know. Maybe Hayden Panettiere just dyes her hair, just goes for it.
Janelle Maloney from the West Wing.
Interesting.
Trying to think out of the box here,
I actually think there will be multiple versions of the Casey Anthony.
Oh, definitely, yes.
Yeah,
depending on
a couple networks.
Yes, from whose standpoint it's told. It certainly does seem to have held the interest of many, many people. So
my Twitter just blew up yesterday. Because I just checked and it was like everybody I followed had an opinion on it.
Well, what was fascinating to me was that it was one of the last divides between, I was going to say high culture and low culture, but that's the wrong way to put it. If you looked at the front page of the New York Times, you wouldn't have known anything was going on.
Oh.
If your source for news was just what's in the Times, maybe all the way down at the bottom you saw, Anthony verdict comes in. But it was rare where the official organs of mainstream media and what everybody loves to talk about were, at least at that particular moment in time, somewhat disparate.
Yeah, a couple of people compared it to, the O.J. trial for this generation. I don't see that at all. Like, the O.J. trial dominated everything for 18 months. Everybody talked about it. Everybody had an opinion on it.
It was. In rock and roll, we would have referred to it as a vertical rather than a horizontal act. It may not have had as widespread appeal, but for those who were into it, it was incredibly important. It was the Elvis Costello of celebrity trials.
But not, I just don't feel like it had the mainstream kind of interest. The O.J. thing, it was...
No, not in the same way. I mean, it's all focused on her, and I'm sure we haven't heard the last of her, so...
All right, so no Aniston. Too old to play.
No, he's not big. No, Aniston's bigger than that. It's not going to be a movie. It's going to be a made-for-TV movie, I think.
But you're on board. You're on board with Aniston and Basic Instinct. The next generation. You're in for that.
A little, Well, I always loved me some Sharon Stone. So anybody who follows in Sharon Stone's, footsteps, unless you're an editor going into the Gila monster cage, is probably doing a good thing.
Now, did you see the Moneyball trailer?
I did, yes, a couple of times.
Because I saw that in the on the big screen before Transformers 3, which I walked out of.
I think I did too, yes. And may I say that anytime you can get three Slinkies fighting each other on a big screen, I'm going to be there.
I walked out after 25 minutes.
You missed all the Slinkies.
I went with my staff.
You missed all the Slinky stuff. Wait till Oprah finds out what they did in Chicago when she ended her show.
I went with the...
Chicago was destroyed more effectively than the Chicago Cubs management did.
I went with the Grantland.com staff. It was like a bonding thing.
Oh.
And about 25 minutes in, first of all, I hate 3D movies. They hurt my eyes, they hurt my nose. Like I feel like I'm going cross-eyed.
You sound like an old guy in a diner now.
Listen, I'm just saying what everybody deep down thinks is that 3D movies aren't that much fun to go to. I bet more people that don't like 3D movies than people that do. It's not that way. You leave, you can't check your BlackBerry, you can't like look around, you can't talk to anybody. You're just trapped with these uncomfortable glasses on.
Why is this popcorn both red and green at the same time?
Get off of my lawn! I don't really like 3D movies. They give me a headache.
I know what you mean. I find it discouraging that they seem darker than the movie experience is supposed to be. I just think it doesn't pop like it should.
I didn't see the first two Transformers. So the third one, it started out, Shia LaBeouf is it LaBeouf or LaBeouf?
We're just going to say LaBeouf, and when he doesn't like pronouncing his name, he's going to call
beat me
him.
up. So he couldn't find a job because even though he was frustrated because he had saved the world twice, and now he couldn't find a job. So I was pretty much out from that point on. And then once I saw the Red Sox game was going, I went to get a soda. And I told Mays, who was sitting next to me, I'll be right back and getting a soda. And I was waiting in line for the soda, and I was just like, why am I here? And I left. That was it. Just exit stage right. But anyway.
You never saw John Turturro. You never saw Francis McDormand.
I did see Malkovich. I saw Malkovich, and I felt bad, and it made me think of the Killing Fields when he actually cared about acting and all that stuff. But
it was sort of like Malkovich playing the same role he'd played in Burn After Reading.
Yeah, he's just given up. He's given up. So anyway, the Moneyball trailer. I watched the Moneyball trailer, and I felt like this is a movie that shouldn't work. It actually seems like it's well done. I'm not sure who it appeals to, but it feels like Brad Pitt being Brad Pitt. Like this might be like a Jerry Maguire type movie. Was I wrong to feel that way?
I had very much the same feeling. I don't know if that's who Brad Pitt is, but I really liked that guy in that trailer.
Yeah, I was like, that guy's a movie star.
Part of me said to myself, well, if I see it 50 times, will that help it be a hit? Because I can't imagine, will my daughter go to it? Will my wife go to it? I don't know. My sons? I don't know. If I see it 50 times, would that work? Might that work? I still don't know how they make it into a movie, but
I don't either.
I really like just watching him up there. I liked what he was doing, so I hope it works.
And he's one of those guys that I feel like not sure what to make of his career. He's definitely a movie star, but I don't know if he's a really good actor or not. And I like Benjamin Button, which he got nominated for a bunch of things. I'll never understand it. Even in that movie, people thought he was good in that movie. I just felt like he was kind of Brad Pitt. The only movie that I ever felt like he was a movie star, weirdly, was Ocean's 11.
Wow.
Like in that movie with Clooney, it just seemed like those guys were movie stars, and it was like it was kind of a validating thing.
Yeah, I would say
Ocean's 13
is actually the classic example of that because
any of them.
Ocean's 13 has the Oprah sequence. They feel like they're really in the pocket there. So
any of them. Right. They Clooney and Pitt feel like movie stars, and weirdly Damon doesn't totally feel like a movie star next to them, even though I think he's a bigger movie star than both of them.
Well,
but
that's
maybe it was the character he played.
Did you ever? You probably didn't read the story that People Magazine did when Matt Damon became the sexiest man alive, because I think they just interviewed Clooney and Pitt about Damon being the sexiest man alive. It was hilarious. It was really funny. Yeah, he has to call us 2-time. Oh, sure, he could do it again. He just has to work a little harder. So,
right. So with Pitt in this Moneyball movie, it kind of made me. I think he needed a movie like this, and it goes. I like your theory that the Cruise being Cruise. I think everybody needs, every 7-8 years or so. If you're going to have,
there is a reason why we love them. I mean, there's a reason why we like seeing the movies, and it's great when. It's like seeing a guy play an old hit song. Maybe he doesn't feel like playing the hit song the way he used to, but we really feel good when he reminds us of why we got into this in the first place.
Yeah, but the thing is, I don't know if I'm not totally sold on whether I like movie Brad Pitt or not. I know I like movie George Clooney. Like, Into the Air I knew I was going to like because it was George Clooney being George Clooney.
Right.
But, like, The American, it was, like, somber, not talking George Clooney.
That's true.
Doing in an action movie that there's no action. Like, you pushed it too far there, George. It's not going to work. But
that's what being a star is all about, though, right? It's like Oh, that George helped. What was that? The Anson Corbin movie?
Yeah.
God bless George doing that thing. Can't wait for George's next thing. That sort of thing.
And the ultimate was Hanks and Castaway, because he's just like, I'm going to be on an island by myself. There's just be me in a volleyball for like an hour, and you're going to watch it. That's it. There's nothing's going to happen. I'm going to talk to a volleyball occasionally, and you're going to be riveted because I'm Tom Hanks. It was like the I'm Keith Hernandez in Seinfeld moment for Tom Hanks. I'm just on an island. There's nobody else there. But you got like I don't know if Brad Pitt pulls off Castaway. I think Clooney could have done it. But you have to have a lot of charisma to pull off that kind of role.
Yeah, I think Brad's sort of signature role for the first part of his career is The River Runs Through It, where he just is, he's just kind of this icon of youth and possibility, and he's like a receptor for everybody's wishes and dreams.
Yeah.
Because of how he looks and because of how he comes across, you project on him all the things you want for people, rather than a guy like Clooney who just radiates quickness and cleverness and interest and excitement and stuff. And that makes him just as compelling. It kind of works in, the highly pretentious Terrence Malick movie, which you'll see with your pinky upraised, dipping your shrimp into the
sushi.
special hot sauce.
Where's my sushi? I can't wait to see it. Yeah, I'm gonna skip that. I'm gonna skip the Terrence Malick movie.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know if I don't want to spend my summer in 2 hours with the artsy fartsy cinema.
Come on, your Gremlin did an entire theme comedy piece based on the fact that both Michael Bay and Terrence Malick wrote letters to the projectionists insisting that their movies be projected in a certain way. I mean, that's like the steroid era of letters going to projectionists. We're gonna have to just throw out the summer of 2011. These numbers will never be able to be taken seriously because 2 movie directors in the summertime sending letters to projectionists, unheard of.
Is there any other movies you're looking forward to this summer?
I kind of want to see the Harry Potter movie. I'm kind of interested to see how they all wrap it up. That's like the Beatles for the 20-something generation. I always used to say there was nothing better than being an adult, being a male kid growing up in the 60s, because you had the Beatles and you had the astronauts. Like, it's never going to get better than that, right? For a kid
Beatles
to have
and the astronauts. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Landing on the moon? Are you kidding? Be an American kid? It's never going to be better than that. But the equivalent of the Beatles experience through the 60s is what the Harry Potter thing has been for kids. The defining stories of their lives, just the spine to it all. And now it all ends. It's like it's the end. And they've never made a great movie, which is too bad. They've made pretty good movies, but bringing the curtain down, you have to say those 3 leads have not dishonored themselves. Nobody got carried out of a bar. Nobody punched anybody out. Nobody went to rehab. They did all right, so I'm interested in that. And then I want to see Crazy Stupid Love.
Oh, with Steve
Carell and Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling. That kind of looks interesting to me.
There's one more. There's an older actress in that. Who's the older actress?
Julianne Moore.
Julianne Moore.
Julianne Moore looking like she's playing a character very much like the one she played in The Kids Are All Right.
Right.
Only she's given the bad news only it's Stephen Carell getting the bad news instead of Annette Bening.
I never watched any of the Harry Potter movies.
Okay. That's all right.
If there's a wizard involved, I'm out.
Is that right? You're not in for the wand thing?
If there's hobbits involved, I'm out. And if there's a forest, I'm out.
Yeah, this is kind of where I jumped off the whole computer game thing, is that so many computer games contain the phrase, bring me the orb. And then I just, I wasn't a Tolkien guy the same way other people were. So
that's why I won't watch Game of Thrones. I don't like to go in the forest. If there's running in the forest, I don't want to be in there.
Well, that was how the real Keith Hernandez used to refer to when he was in a slump. They said, Keith, you haven't been hitting. He goes, I'm in the dark forest. I'm in the dark forest. So I know what you mean. When they're in the dark forest, it's not good news.
It does seem like we're nearing the end of all these franchises, though. Because I think Twilight has to be over soon, right? Please tell me it's going to end.
You just keep thinking that, right? She's still alive and well and writing. You know what I mean?
Kill her already. Kill her. Kill the character.
No, we got Hunger Games coming.
Oh, my God. Hunger Games coming.
Hunger Games with the with what we have to admit is the highly promising Jennifer Lawrence front and center. I do think we want to see how this one turns out.
Great, good call. I would buy stock. If she was a baseball card, I would buy it.
Yep.
The only thing is, isn't she like a little too old to play this role? I thought that was a big controversy, that she was like 4 or 5 years too old.
You and I will never read the books, right?
Okay.
And a lot of people won't. And so I think they're going to be paying people a lot of money to make sure she's credible in those roles and stuff. So
yeah, she's a movie star. I mean, we're a little bit burned because of how the Scarlett Johansson hair turned out. You know what I mean? Like that, just being adorable and cute and a little bit buxom can only really go so far. You actually have to have the acting chops.
Well,
I don't think Scarlett has
here's
it.
the thing, though. You look at Scarlett Johansson in, what was that, Ghost World? You look at Scarlett Johansson in the undiscovered Coen Brothers movie, the black and white one. The Man Who Wasn't There, is that what it was called? Used to be called The Man With My Name. She's good in those. She's good in those. I didn't think she was so good in the Woody Allen movies, but people liked her in there. We can't entirely count her out yet, just because Hollywood picked up on her being a highly decorative individual.
All right, fair.
And I would question, to go back to your, what we'll now refer to as your seminal essay on movies.
Thank you.
Your seminal essay. You say that Ryan Reynolds and Scarlett Johansson got an Us magazine bump as a result of their relationship.
No, I think Ryan Reynolds did. I don't think she was really helped. She was already established.
That was the Area 51 of relationships.
What does that mean?
You didn't know a thing about it. You didn't know when they were dating. You didn't know when they went out. You didn't know when they got married. You didn't know what their marriage was. You didn't know why they broke up. You don't know a thing about it. That was never mentioned in Us Weekly because there's never anything to say. There have been relationships, that guy from the Patriots who thinks he has a relationship with Kim Kardashian, he had a more talked about relationship than those two did in public, and he didn't even have a relationship with her. That was a stealth relationship.
Who's the guy from the Patriots?
They didn't get any bump from it.
What was the Patriot?
The guy who thought that he was dating Kim Kardashian on Twitter. But who found out that, I don't know what the punchline is, who keeps insisting that he was having a romance with Kim Kardashian on Twitter, even though they have never physically met. You don't know this story?
Didn't follow that one.
Oh.
Didn't follow that one. You're more hip to this stuff than I am. What can I tell you?
It's all the room that should be taken up with who the ruling party in Iran is and, like, how macroeconomics actually work.
No, I don't follow that stuff either.
It's a sad thing.
I think that was Patriots safety Brett Lockett.
Thank you.
There you go. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you for not making me sound like I'm like a crazy guy.
I missed that story.
Well, you must, yeah. The lifeguards who were texting, they know that story.
All right. Yeah, Scarlett Johansson.
So that was like a stealth relationship. Like the one she had with Sean Penn, that was much more public, really, than the one with Ryan Reynolds. Ryan Reynolds' long-term relationship with Alanis Morissette was better known than his relationship with Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah, because after the You Ought to Know song in the mid-'90s, it's always exciting when she dates anybody, because if it ends badly, you just know it's going to end up in some sort of song and the guy's going to get butchered.
Well, no, this is what's so interesting that you said that. She did write a story. She did write a song about him when they broke up, about Ryan.
Right. I think she wrote a whole album.
And it was really nice. It was really nice. In her unusually, prosaic kind of offbeat way, she said, "I really miss your interesting friends." And I thought, wow, this is really to his credit that he's in this relationship and they break up, and when she writes the song, she says nice things about him. Someone who's capable of going in the other direction. So, point for Ryan Reynolds. Also,
you know why, though?
What?
Well, hold on, though. You know why? Because they're both Canadian. Canadian on Canadian crime is illegal unless it's in hockey.
I sat down with Ryan Reynolds to interview him last year about being the sexiest man alive, and we have all the lights and all the people from People Magazine, all the people from ABC, and the first thing I said to him, Ryan, I understand one of us has just been named the sexiest man alive. And he said, tapped my leg, he said, good luck next year.
Yeah, I'm not ruling you out.
He's all right with me, that's all I'm saying.
Give us an ESPYs plug and give us a My Wish plug.
Well, the ESPYs are going to be live with Seth Meyers. It's going to be fantastic. Anybody who saw last year's show knows how tremendous this year's show is no doubt going to be. The only thing that has to improve from last year, Bill, and you can support me in this, the athletes' acceptance speeches have to be better, right? We've done everything we can. You know, all the people who work on the ESPYs have done an amazing job to making that an entertaining and fun show. It's time for the winners to step it up. So let's have some crazy acceptance speeches, okay?
Here's where you get into trouble with the ESPYs.
Yeah?
Athletes can't talk extemporaneously usually.
So prepare something. So have something ready.
If
have that guy in the entourage who never seems to do much, who like takes care of the cars, like have him write something.
Or maybe have that guy give the speech.
Sure. Like the way Will Ferrell stood up and was Tiger Woods one year.
Well, listen, I am on the record as how to solve that problem. You go Golden Globe style. You get people drinking.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's always been the solution. Why they won't go Golden Globe style, I'll never understand. But everybody should be at tables. Everybody should be drinking. And you want, like, who's going to win this year? Aaron Rodgers? You want Aaron Rodgers to go up with maybe he shouldn't have had that second glass of Cabernet right before he went up. Maybe he shouldn't have the red wine teeth. That's what you want from the ESPYs.
If that show you worked on back in the Paleolithic era, Bill, if that show didn't have the girl throwing up in front of the Disney executive, some of these things could be happening now. Listen,
that's all we wanted. You want unpredictability. So, you know, the fact that the awards are now live really helps, because that's 95% of the reason you watch an award show, because you never know when you're going to have that Suge Knight moment.
That's right.
Which, by the way, is on YouTube now. The entire 1995 Source Awards is on YouTube. Just in case you want to kill 2 hours, you can basically bang out the entire award show in
if you could really stop using words like kill and bang in connection with the 1995 Source Awards, we'd really appreciate it.
Sorry about that. Yeah. Hey, listen, if you guys don't want a producer that puts himself in your videos, come to Death Row.
Come to Death Row.
One of the great 2 minutes ever.
I was at the I'll get the awards show. I think might have been the Source Awards. It was in like Pasadena one year when Mac Minister and E40 got into a fight and everybody beat it out of there and the show ended.
Right.
You know how I was talking?
Those were the days.
You know who I was talking to at that moment when that happened? You know who I was interviewing backstage at that moment?
Who?
Rasheed Wallace.
Wow.
Because he had a rap label.
Of course he did.
And of course, his eyes got really big when the monitor started showing strange stuff going on.
Those were golden days.
They were.
Golden days. A lot of electricity and excitement. Yeah. The mid-'90s hip-hop rap world.
None of that's going to happen at the ESPYs, though. It's going to be a great show.
Yeah, I don't know. You still might see a Suge Knight moment. I'm not ruling it out.
You're not going to see the best female tennis player get up there and say, if you don't want the head of Nike in your videos, come to Reebok. It's not going to happen.
Please make it happen. If they were drinking, it would happen. And then my wish, July 17th.
Through the 20th, I think, yes.
All right.
Some great wishes this year.
And I'll walk by you on the red carpet. I'll be on that little auxiliary red carpet for the people that aren't actually famous people.
I look forward to seeing you there.
Waving at you in the Aaron Andrews. Chris Connelly, always a pleasure. Talk to you soon.
Same here. Thank you very much.
So I get to sign off. Whoa.
Thank you for downloading the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at Pod Center at ESPNradio.com.
Peace out.